Welcome everyone to Gamer Melt. Today I've got a ton of stuff to cover, so I figured a talking head video would be best. Either way, starting things off, we have official 13th gen slides that leaked. Intel finally reveals their Arc desktop GPUs, RTX 4090 at 3 GHz, custom 4090 models have been confirmed, and Nvidia officially teases their RTX 4000 GPUs. But first, if you're like me and you love PC hardware, you never want to miss anything, but it's hard to keep up with all the major new releases. There's just so much noise out there. That's why I came up with Meld Alerts. It's completely free, and basically when major PC hardware is released, I'll send you a notification. Plus I'll tell you where you can get great deals so you can actually get it at a good price. I may even send some build suggestions from time to time. With that said, let me know what releases you're most excited about by dropping a comment below. And don't worry, I'm not going to flood your inbox. Some weeks you won't get anything and others you might get a few emails. To sign up, just visit meldalerts.com and fill out the form. It's just your email. Once again, that's meldalerts.com. Okay, it's news time, and first up for today, we have a news story from the very trustworthy leaker Igor's Lab. In it, he actually shared some slides for Intel's upcoming 13th gen CPUs. And while I'm not going to go over every slide, there are at least a couple slides that I think are really important. Starting things off, we have the SKU list of pretty much every one of Intel's upcoming 13th gen CPUs, at least for launch. As you can see right here, we have the 13900K, 900KF, 700K, 700KF, 600K, and 600KF. Now, if you've been following the channel for a little while, you more or less know pretty much all the specs. In fact, if you remember a little while back, I recently went over this leak by Extreme Player, and let's just say it was extremely accurate. In fact, there was one thing that I didn't really cover and go over, which is the different revision numbers, because it wasn't really a sure thing, but according to HXL, some non-K SKUs will apparently be a refresh of Alder Lake, and when we look at this slide right here, it pretty much confirms it. As you can see, it says increased L3 Intel Smart Cache on Intel Core i5 desktop processors and above. Increased L2 cache on i5K processors and above. Meaning, for some of Intel's next-gen CPUs, the company is actually going to be using older tech. More specifically, video cards, I believe it was, stated that what they're hearing is that certain CPUs, these lower end non-K models, like the 13600 non-K model, will effectively have the older Golden Cove performance cores instead of the newer Raptor Cove cores. So even though they're calling it 13th gen, it's kind of sort of not. There will likely be at least some things that are better, but maybe not. I don't know. This could almost be like a bin 12th gen CPU. I don't know, but it definitely doesn't look all that great for Intel. And speaking of things that haven't really gone all that well for Intel, we finally have their desktop Arc GPUs. That is, Intel finally revealed the entire Arc GPU lineup when it comes to desktop, not just mobile. You can see we have their Arc A3 series, A5, and A7. And of course, we already more or less know about the A380. It was sort of launched a little while back, though it was in China first, then it came to the US, but they didn't really make any big deal out of it. It all of a sudden seemed to show up at retailers out of the blue, but hey, here it is. Like I said, you mostly know about this one, 8 Xe cores, 8 ray tracing cores, which of course, there's one ray tracing unit per Xe core, so it's always going to align with how many Xe cores there are, but total of 128 execution units. Now, they don't really use execution units anymore, but this is essentially what it is. This is their more FP32 compute, more of the traditional cores, and it ends up being 128. Next, it comes with 2000 megahertz clocks, 6 gigabytes of GDDR6 for a total of 186 gigabytes per second bandwidth. Then we have the A580, which comes with quite a bit of a jump here from 8 to 24 Xe cores, making for a total of 384 XMX engines or EUs. Then you will notice that the clocks move down a bit, 300 megahertz down to 1700 megahertz, though of course, once again, the actual XE cores is quite a bit more versus the A380s, so it should be quite a bit more powerful. Either way, this one gets 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory for a total of 512 gigabytes per second. Moving on, we have the A750, which gets a little bump from the A580 from 24 to 28 cores for a total of 448 EUs. But the difference here being that instead of 1700 megahertz, it gets a whopping 2050 megahertz. Still comes with 8 gigabytes of GDDR6, and of course that means 512 gigabytes per second. Finally is the big daddy, the behemoth, the flagship A series of GPUs, the A770, which comes with 32 XE cores, and that means 512 EUs. This one gets a little bump in the clocks to 2100 megahertz, and while we've mostly only focused on the 16 gigabyte model, there's apparently two models, an 8 and 16 gigabyte A770. Moving on, we have another slide that just gives us a tiny bit more information for the A750 and A770. As you can see, both of these cards get a total board power of 225 watts. And next up for today, we have a new benchmark that leaked out for the RTX 4090. But before I get to that, I do actually need to admit that I made a mistake. In my last video, I actually went over, not this is something I'll get to in just a second, but this right here I went over. It was supposed to show one of Nvidia's upcoming 4000 GPUs, some performance metrics, supposedly from Nvidia, but unfortunately, it was fake. The user who actually shared it even admitted to it themselves, but unfortunately, I did share it as one of the stories, like I said, but it just is not true. A lot of outlets reported on it, but that's not an excuse. That's just kind of an explanation. I saw a lot of people discussing it, thought it was interesting, went ahead and talked about it myself, but clearly I need to be more diligent on this. So once again, if you saw that video, I just wanted to correct that. Of course, I do let people know. I try my best to say, hey, this is a leak, so it, may not necessarily be accurate, but a lot of times I'll explain, I'll use terms like resident leaker instead of just leaker, just to kind of show that they've proven themselves. But of course, I still want to admit when I share something that ends up being incorrect. With that said, we do have a new story that comes from the Chip forums, and a lot of things do come from here that end up being 100% accurate. And given this is like a picture rather than just a screenshot that anyone can fake, it's a little bit harder when you're actually just taking a picture of a screen. But once again, we get a lot of really good stuff out of the Chip forums in the past. Either way, this is supposedly done with an RTX 4090, possibly this one right here, because the user did say that it was very big. But as you can see, it got a Time Spy Extreme score, the GPU score of 20,192. Now, it got a much lower overall score, and that's because they were just using an i5 or the CPU, but still 20,192. You can also see that it got up to 3,015 megahertz. So apparently Nvidia is going to be going way higher when it comes to clocks for next gen. And when it comes to that score, you can see down here, it is a massive jump even over the 3090 Ti. In fact, it's a whopping 80% uplift over this gen's current flagship. So a really big boost there. Obviously, that would mean it would be even faster versus the 3090. And of course, once again, this is a leak. Not 100% sure this is real. Take it with a grain of salt, but there are some things that are real. For example, really quickly, this actually just reminded me, while this ended up being incorrect, one thing that was correct is the idea of Nvidia releasing two RTX 4080s. You can see right here, Resident Leaker Copite 7 Kimmy states that there was a plan to make an RTX 4090 with 8103, but now it may be the RTX 4080 16 gigabyte. That's in reference to this discussing a 16GB 4080 and 12GB 4080, which we recently saw a leaker claim that Nvidia is going to be releasing both of those cards, or at the very least that they are working on them, to which this more or less confirms that. Either way, moving on, we actually have 4090 GPUs showing up at retailers. Both of these stories you can see here, both of them are Gigabyte RTX 4090s, and the first one comes from a Vietnamese retailer. This is, you can see, 4090 WF3, 4090 Gaming OC Aorus, multiple 4090s here. Then we have an Australian retailer not long after posted their RTX 4090s. You can see 4090 Gaming OC, 4090 Aorus M. And of course, while these do have pricing, you can see, 4,270 AUD, which is nearly 3,000 USD. So wild prices, but as usual, this is likely just placeholder pricing. I really would not be too concerned or look too much into this. Regardless, this more or less proves that the GPUs are coming very soon. And in fact, Nvidia themselves have more or less confirmed this. As you can see right here, Nvidia GeForce primary account, as well as multiple other GeForce accounts, they've changed their main thumbnail image, and they shared this video. It's obviously not much to go off of, but it then says #ProjectBeyond. And according to PC World, Nvidia has sent out invitations to a GeForce Beyond special broadcast, as they say, where we expect to see the RTX 4000 series debuted. This actually takes place during GTC, which is only a few days off. And if you're interested, I will have affiliate links down in the description below to those GPUs for when they're released. Basically, Nvidia is pretty much without a doubt, they have confirmed that their next-gen GPUs are coming, and they're coming really soon. So while that does it for today, are you pumped for Nvidia's next-gen RTX 4000 GPUs, or are you still excited to see Intel's Arc GPUs? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe. And as always, have a great day.